I thought I logged in as myself, but I didn't.
Good job. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Beth, are you not at home? Are you,
I I I am at home now. I'm home. I'm at home for this.
oh, exciting.
Yeah.
I knew you were all over the place this week, right? That's the
Yes.
plan.
Yes.
Good.
I have a lot of family in town, so
A lot of management in summer, right? That's
yeah.
fun. Yeah, cool. All right.
Because we live in a beach community, so everybody wants to come here.
Yes, they do.
So you have the questions, correct?
I do, and I shared them with Dr. Brice and his team, and so I'm usually how they've done it is that they've just gone back and forth reading them. I don't know if they're going
Okay.
to share the questions on the screen this one, but usually they just um, will read the question and then answer it.
Okay. Sounds good.
Okay.
Hello, everybody. Yeah, I cannot
Hi,
hear.
John. Hi, Dr. Brice. Hi, everybody.
Hi,
So many faces. Everybody's looking a little tan and healthy. Some refreshed parents I see. Dr. Brice, I figure we'll give everybody another 4 minutes to get here.
Okay. pop up my virtual background. Yes. All right, and we have questions, I am assuming.
Yep.
I sent a link earlier, maybe an hour ago. I can resend it if you need it.
Hold on.
And the other way we could do it, Beth created a slideshow with all the questions so we can share the screen as well.
Oh, that's nice.
That would be good.
Okay.
Definitely not
All
fancy,
right.
but
So we'll just take the questions from there then.
Mhm.
okay.
All right, that's a great picture. Ryan is out on the rocks. Okay, all right. Great picture. Hey. All right, Principal Roman, you want to get us started?
I sure would. So, first of all, I'd like to say thank you to everyone for taking your time out to come tonight, to be a part of this, to listen, to be supportive of your students, to be supportive of us as a Guiteras community. You know, we have a lot of work to do. We've done a lot of work. We have an amazing team here in Bristol Warren, not only at our school, but within our district, you know, under the leadership of Dr. Brice and Dr. Santa, and so many others. So I want you all to know that you come here with a group of individuals that has spent an enormous amount of time trying to consider every idea, every thought, every worry, every question. We hope that tonight you can walk away feeling like at least you have your questions answered as best as we can answer them right now. And please also know that things are changing even today with
Really?
you know, here and there. And so we are doing our best to not only be prepared, but flexible and positive and really, really keeping a good sense of humor as well, because that's absolutely essential in all of this. That doesn't mean that the sense of humor gets in the way of the seriousness of the situation, but it gives us a chance to understand that there are so many going through so much right now. And that may be yourselves. So again, thank you for taking the time. And without further ado, let's start with some of the questions. So here's how this is going to work tonight, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong. But I did jump on with Rockwell, and I think we're gonna start with the questions, Dr. Brice. Is that, or do you want to speak first?
Yeah. So typically, what I do is I do like a brief, very brief, sort of high level about our plan. Make any general announcements, and then we jump into the questions. And so let me also concur with what Principal Roman Beth has mentioned. Thank you for taking time out of your schedule. I know that we have a much better day today than we did last week. And so I know that you could be outside or you could do other things, but you found it very important to be here with us. So thank you for that. I also want to introduce, I've got members of my leadership team with me. I've got Diane Santa. Dr. Santa is the Assistant Sup for Curriculum and Instruction. Tina Fogel, who is about to wave, I think, if she's not frozen, who's the Chief Operating Officer. I've got Ed Clark, who's here somewhere, who's the Director of Student Support Services. I thought I saw Rose. There's Rose, she's waving right now. Rose is the Director of Technology. Kate Brown is the person that makes district office go and keeps me organized. Thank you, Kate, for being here. And I'm certain that there will be other people joining us. So let's start with the news that just came out today. So one of the things that I have strongly encouraged all the district admin and all of our staff to really be is flexible. It's something that we need to do as leaders, but it's also something that we're going to ask parents to do. We need everyone to be flexible. The situation on the ground is changing as quickly as any situation I think we've ever experienced. And so just today, we have been planning on the governor making an announcement on the 17th about what model of instruction we were going to have. That date has been changed. There will now be an announcement sometime during the week of the 31st. But what the governor and the commissioner have done is that they have actually delayed the opening of school for several weeks. So it looks like staff will come back on September the 9th and students will return on September the 14th. Students will have a shortened school year by 3 days. They'll have 177 days. Staff will still have 180 days, but the moving us back gives us time to see what happens in other places, I think is what the governor and the commissioner are really focused on, as well as build in time at the start of the year for professional development, which is going to be critical to make sure that staff are ready to teach in any model of instruction that we have. I will very briefly go over the 4 models of instruction and basically our plan. Our plan is focused on 4 areas. First and foremost is health and safety of students and staff. Next, we talk about the models of instruction. There are 4. We also then talk about our full academic, which we find to be incredibly useful for our students. We want to educate the whole child and not just focus on reading or mathematics. And then finally, we talk about things like staffing and budget, because those are going to be huge considerations. So very briefly, what can you expect? What can you expect for your children this year? School is going to be different. There is no way, no doubt about it. When students return to school, all students, all staff will have to wear a mask. The expectation is that they're going to have to wear a mask the entire day. They're also going to have to be screened before they leave the home before they leave your home, so that when they get to school, we can very quickly in-process them into the building, into their classrooms. We also know that we're going to provide frequent routine cleaning of the building, to include cleaning of the bathrooms and disinfecting multiple times. There'll be an isolation room in case anyone gets sick, that will be cleaned immediately after each usage. And we will be cleaning high touch areas, stairwell, railings, doorknobs, things like that. It is critically important that parents help us. This will be the first year that you ever hear schools say, if your child is a little under the weather, if they're not quite feeling their best, keep them home. Typically, what we have said is we want students to press. We want them to continue to make their way to school. But given what we're dealing with, we are asking for parents to keep their children home if your children are under weather. In addition to that, we already mentioned that every morning we are asking parents to screen their children, so that before your child gets to the bus stop, before you drop your child off in the morning or your child walks to school, they've completed what we call an attestation. And that attestation will allow us to know that the students and staff, because staff have to do it as well, when they are entering the building, that they have no signs or symptoms of COVID-19, which is certainly what we are concerned about. So also in terms of health and safety, we have recognized that having students, having staff inside rooms all day could be something that is really pretty difficult. So I've asked all of our principals to find time and to schedule opportunities for our students and staff to get outside, to be far apart, even more than 6 feet, to be able to remove their mask for some minutes so that they can get some fresh air. Because we think that's going to be critically important. And I don't know if our nurse is on with us, but we've also have to build into our schedule multiple bathroom or lavatory breaks, because it's going to be critically important that students wash their hands multiple times throughout the day. We want them to wash their hands before a snack, after a snack, before lunch, after lunch. When they walk into the building in the morning, they're going to get hand sanitizer. There'll be hand sanitizing stations at every entrance. When they get on the bus, they'll be given hand sanitizer. We think these things are going to be critically important to maintain the health of all of our students. And so we ask that you help us with that. The next thing we'll talk about are models of instruction. So there are going to be 4 models of instruction. At the elementary level for Guiteras and our other elementary schools, we are planning a full in-person return to school, space permitting. And so what we know is that when Dr. Santa and myself, when we walk buildings, we were able to go in with our custodial staff and remove some desks to make sure that desks were 6 feet apart. We believe that we can get 17 or 18 desks in most of our classrooms. So what that means is that we're going to have to cap those classrooms at, in-person education at about 18 students per classroom. And even 18 is going to be really tight. And so it's critically important that all students wear their masks throughout the day. Hopefully we won't have any issues where parents or students refuse to wear their mask. If there's a health-related reason why students can't wear their mask, please let us know and we will work to address that. But with the 6 feet apart and the mask on, we believe that students should be well cared for. We also recognize that in some cases, airflow is going to be an issue. We expect that there are going to be questions about that. There is guidance that says you can use fans as long as the fans are not blowing directly on students or staff, and that they are being used to increase airflow. And so that is something that we are certainly looking into. We do not know if we will be able to do it, but we are at least looking into that. So that's full in person. Next is partial. If the governor and the commissioner of education were to make a decision that we would go partial, we would reduce class size to about 15 students per class. But we really think that the likelihood of us going partial is not going to happen. We would probably go from full in person to limited. Limited means that students would attend school 1 day per week. The rest of the time they would be distance learning with their teacher in their classrooms. And then finally, there's full distance. Full distance learning is similar to what we did back in the spring. What we know, however, is that there are some great ideas and some lessons learned from that experience. One of the things that we learned, which leads into the next area, is that a lot of the research at the time was pretty sparse. And it mentioned that, what schools should do is not teach any new material, that we should only teach review material, and that we should only have class for about an hour a day, maybe an hour and a half. We categorically rejected that idea because we didn't think it was in the best interest of our students. And we wanted to make sure that we provided a full range of academic and co-curricular subjects. So we wanted English language arts, mathematics, science, and social studies, but we also want art and music and PE and things like that. And so we were able to do those things last year, and we certainly expect to be able to do them this year if we have to migrate to a distance learning environment. And then finally, we talk about additional staffing. We talk about additional items that we are purchasing. So right now we are purchasing items that we believe are necessary to clean and disinfect our buildings and keep everyone safe, whether it be PPE. So I think right now I have 12,000 masks either in stock or on order. We've ordered another, so let me rephrase that. We've increased our custodial and cleaning budget by $100,000. We've increased our budget for our nurses by another $100,000, just because that's where we're putting a bunch of the PPE line. We also recognize that we're going to need additional staff in order to do this. We're going to need people that help us with lunch, because students will eat lunch in the classroom. We're going to need additional people, excuse me, on the buses, because we're going to need help to process students as quickly as possible. And we also are going to hire what we're calling nursing assistants, who are really CNA certified nursing assistants. And their job will be to help us to support the nurse in the event that students get the normal childhood illnesses that students get. They will be able to operate the isolation room while the nurse is dealing with all of the other normal issues that arise. So that's our overview. That's really the focus of the plan that we submitted to RIDE. I think the last thing I would mention is that I know a lot of people believe that the decision as to should we come back, should we return to school or not return to school, resides with the superintendent or resides with the school committee. In this case, it does not reside with the school committee or the superintendent of schools, nowhere across the state. It is a decision of the governor, the commissioner of education, and it will be influenced by the director of the Rhode Island Department of Health, Dr. Alexander Scott. So those are the three entities or organizations that are making decisions for the entire state. I can tell you that I think the governor mentioned last week that if at that time, if she had to make a decision, there would only be 3 school systems that would have to go virtual, and that the other systems could implement their plans. For us at the elementary level, it means that we're going to bring all of our students back unless the parents have opted for distance learning. At the middle school and the high school level, parents also had the opportunity to opt into distance learning, but because of the numbers of students and the physical layout of the rooms, we had to implement a hybrid model where students attend school for part of the week in person, and then the rest of the week they're at home doing distance learning. And we did the same at the high school level. So with that, I will stop, and Beth, let's answer some questions.
Wait, are you bringing it up or would you like me to?
Yeah, do you want to bring it up? Because I actually don't have the PowerPoint.
Okay.
All right. Do we need technical assistance? So,
Hold on.
okay. So if not, we can go back to the way that we've been doing it, all the other ones, which is we just read off the question and go.
Give me a sec. I'm coming.
Okay.
I'm not as comfortable with Zoom here as Google. Here we go. How's that?
All right.
You see that?
Yep. All right. So here's what we're going to do. So I've got my team here. And so we are going to all jump in and answer questions. So all right, so let's scroll down because this says number 32. Let's see with our first.
Hold on. But you don't want to start at the end? Let's start at the beginning. And the beginning takes us to health and safety.
Got it. All right. So let me, all right. All right. So Diane, you want to start and you want to do this?
Sure.
The first 6?
Yep, sure. Hi, everyone. Thanks for being here. So the first question is regarding mask use. So yes, all students will be required to wear masks when in the school, students and staff, and they will be required to wear them for PE and recess. But with recess, we are hoping that the majority of the time they will be outside, spread apart, more than 6 feet, and being able to maintain that distance. So we know with young children, it's very hard to keep them apart. So if teachers find that they're having difficulty doing that, then they will put the masks back on. If they're doing an activity or if they're purposely spread out, and we've talked about using things like hula hoops or marking off sections, and we're pretty sure that they can maintain that 6 feet distance, then we'll allow them to take their masks off, have a mask break. We're also encouraging teachers to take their kids out for recess more often, or just outside for a brief break, because we know that they need to be able to take those masks off. Next question is, will there be technology to screen those students and adults entering the building? We will be just doing the COVID screening questions. We will not be taking temperatures of everyone. One of the reasons is, or several reasons is, we're not being asked to do that by the Rhode Island Department of Health. And secondly, it would be very chaotic with hundreds of children coming into a school each morning. So we're trusting on parents that they will take temperatures in the morning and report that on the screening form. Next, has there been discussion around having children and staff tested prior to schools reopening? No, we have not heard that. But obviously, if that's something that we are required to do, we would notify families and staff members and put that into action. Next, are teachers required to complete the COVID screening survey on a daily basis? Yes, both students and staff are responsible for that. And how does administration intend to verify that those in attendance correspond to those filling out the survey symptoms? Can a summarized report indicating the number of surveys equals the attendance for that day be made available daily to the parents? I'm not quite sure I'm understanding the question correctly, but our process will be that staff and families will submit those forms before coming into school or before leaving for the bus. We'll be using an electronic system, so we'll be able to pull up a report and make sure that all students have completed the form. If they haven't, we will contact the families and make sure that we get it completed. So we will have that report to refer to each day, and then the same thing with staff members.
You know what, Diane, let me just jump in real quick. Though one thing I would mention is the idea that there may be some families that submit a paper form every day. And so that's why we're not using this as an indication for attendance, but instead attendance will be taken for students in class as usual, and for students that are not, the students that actually log in using their Chromebooks, which will be provided for them for every student. That is also another way that attendance will be taken.
And then the next question is about what happens if a child comes to school and they are sick. So if they come to school and they have COVID-like symptoms, they would, well, in either way, they would go to the nurse's office right away, and the nurse would do an assessment of the student. If the nurse feels that it's just a cold and not necessarily, or allergies and not COVID related, then they would contact the families. If the nurse feels that it is COVID related, then the student would go into an isolation room that we're required to have set up. And that's one of the reasons that we're hiring additional nursing aides, because we know that we're going to have those situations. We know that any child who even appears to be a little bit sick will want the nurse to assess them. And then within the isolation room, we're requiring families to come and pick up their child within 1 hour. And the nurse will be fully protected and be going through a process that is spelled out for us by the Rhode Island Department of Health. So they have all of those protocols already established for us. And our nurses have been very involved with conversations and meetings with Rhode Island Department of Health as far as reading all of those requirements. So we feel very comfortable with the process that they've laid out, and we will be following that process.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, so question number 7. Why can't we switch from virtual learning to attending school when we feel it's safe? 6 months is a long time to commit to virtual learning. So you actually have another option. The option is the first trimester. And so that first trimester is roughly 3 months. And I think the first trimester ends the end of November, right before December, or maybe a little after. Now that it looks like the start of school is shifting, it might go all the way to winter break. But you certainly could choose that as an option. And if you feel like it's safe, certainly send Principal Roman an email along with myself, and we will take it under advisement. The real issue for us is that we need to know which students are going to be in school, which students are going to be in school virtually, so that we can start to arrange classes. And that's what we're beginning to do this week. And her July 29th press conference seems like so long ago. Governor Raimondo extended phase 3 to lower the social gathering max limit from 25 to 15. Is the district planning to adjust the stable group size to 15 or lower? So, you know what, this highlights what so superintendents and our leadership teams are on a call at least once a week, but typically twice a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays, with other superintendents and school leaders from around the state. And that's one of the things that we've highlighted, that there are inconsistencies in the rules, and it makes it hard for everyone to understand exactly what we're doing. But what I can say to you is, while the social gathering limit has been reduced from 25 to 15, the stable group size limit is still a max of 30. That has not changed. And even though it's a max of 30, we expect in our elementary schools that what you'll see is class sizes, student class sizes of approximately 17 or 18, and then maybe 2 or 3 adults in that class. The teacher of record maybe a TA, and maybe an itinerant teacher, or excuse me, co-curricular teacher as well. Number 9, if a child or staff member is sent home or otherwise not allowed into the building due to COVID symptoms, will families who are in the same stable group be notified by the school? Will that group also be told to quarantine, get tested, and or participate in distance learning? I'm going to answer this question from the last part of it first. Distance learning is both a safety net and another option for us. And the reason why we say it's a safety net is because there are going to be times when students may just have a normal childhood illness and they're going to be home. But if they have their Chromebook, they can still, and they have their workbook, they can still log in to their classrooms and work with their teachers. The teacher just needs to know that they're going to log in so that they can open up the Google Meet. I think in terms of who gets sent home, people being sent home will certainly be a decision that the nurse makes. I will be informed of it. Principal Roman will be informed of it, but it will be something that the nurse ultimately makes that decision. In terms of notification and those things will be made by the health department, because the health department is the agency responsible for contact tracing. I think one of the concerns that we have is that initially there may be a level of misinformation where people think, oh, Jonathan was sent home today, that must mean he has COVID-19. No, he had a simple cold. He was sent home. But we understand that there may be an initial overreaction because of misinformation. And so we just want to be clear that the school system is not able to share any information, doesn't know any information until such a time as the health department tells us, here's what you're dealing with, here's what we recommend you do. Other than that, we are taking the universal precautions. I've also said this to our folks. So a number of years ago, before bloodborne pathogens became an issue, if someone cut themselves, you might very quickly see them and walk up and just touch it with your arm and, hey, you know what, keep pressure on that. But now, because we understand the risk of bloodborne pathogens, we ask people, oh, here's something, put that on it yourself and hold it yourself. I think this is the same thing. We're asking everyone in our buildings to wear a mask. So they're going to wear a mask that covers both their nose and their mouth. We are also going to have students socially distant, and there will be markings and signage throughout our buildings. We also are going to keep them at the elementary level and middle school in stable groups that relatively will not change. Now, the group that you're in on the bus will not be the group that you are in at school. There may be some students in the same group, but everyone's going to have a mask on. And it seems that that's the big safety piece, that everyone wear a mask. And so that's why we are really going to be adamant in working with moms and dads and families that we need everybody to wear a mask all the time, every day, and that we are going to limit the number of students that are commingling, because based on the guidance that we've received, that is the quickest way for us to help students to be able to remain in school and learn and hopefully not get sick. Number 10, the BWRSD reopening plan addresses procedures for students and teachers who test positive, but what are procedures if a parent becomes ill? So certainly if a parent becomes ill, that is a situation that the parent knows. The parent is under no obligation to notify us that they are ill at any time. Now the question probably is, what happens if the parent becomes ill with COVID? Then I would assume, and this is an assumption, but I am not a medical professional, I would assume that once that person is tested and receives notification that they are testing positive for COVID-19, that anybody that is in their immediate household is likely to have to quarantine. But that is a health department decision. That is not an information. That is not something that the school system would be made aware of. Number 11, if a child is home sick or quarantined, will they participate with a distance learning specific teacher or their assigned classroom teacher? Another great question, one that we have been grappling with. So at the elementary level, we believe that they will actually be assigned a specific distance learning teacher because of the numbers. And I don't have it with me, but there are, I think, approximately 400 K-5 students or pre-K-5 students whose parents have opted for them to participate in distance learning. So because of that number, it's going to mean that we may be able to have small class sizes, and we would have 1 or 2 extra teachers per grade level that we would pull out, and we would use those teachers to be distance learning teachers across the district. Yes, so I think that it takes us through number 11. Beth, you want to do, Tina, do you want to do some questions? Because we've got an HVAC one and a fan one.
So hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. So number 12, will fans be provided in the classrooms? Can we donate air conditioning to our child's teacher? The guidance that we've received, and we have been participating in facilities meetings throughout the state with engineers and other people who are far more knowledgeable about these things than I am. And we are being told that fans can be used in the classroom. We are looking at providing them in areas that are desperately needed. Most teachers, we've talked to teachers, most teachers do have fans. And so we'll be focusing on those areas that do not have fans. As far as donating air conditioners, I would leave that to Dr. Brice, but I'm not sure that that's something that, because of the way that our many of our school windows are, my guess is that a parent couldn't go and just purchase a window unit and that would automatically fit into the windows. As you remember, when we were all in school, many of them are the windows that kind of crank out. And so obviously a typical air unit, a window unit wouldn't fit, but we are looking at different solutions, but we will be bringing fans into the buildings. Will students be allowed to go to the Discovery Garden to learn and get fresh air? Absolutely. I think as Dr. Brice mentioned in his opening remarks, outdoor classrooms and spaces are something that we're focusing on. We've rented some tents where Principal Roman will be scheduling classes to be outside in different areas. We're discussing different options to add additional outside space while the weather is nice. And so my guess is absolutely that any learning space outside will be used. I have heard that tents are being provided for outdoor learning. Is this correct? Where will they be located? Will a schedule be created? Yes. Beth, I'm gonna have to defer to you about exactly where your tent is located. I don't know off the top of my head.
So, oh man. All right, I think you can hear me.
Yes.
All I can see is the question. So
Yeah, just mute one of your machines, Beth.
yeah, I did. So I just, so in terms of the Discovery Garden, we walked around the facilities a lot at Guiteras trying to figure out the right location for the tents. Absolutely, kids are going to be scheduled to go outside, to be a part of the Discovery Garden, to work out there, to do some learning out there. Unfortunately, we were unable to fit the tent in that area, just based on the fact that it's not an even ground. There isn't enough space out there for the size of the tent. So what we ended up doing is moving that tent over across right by the dugout at the baseball field. And actually, it's a nice safe spot too because it's fenced in there. So we felt like that was probably the best location to put it at that time. That doesn't mean that kids aren't going to be able to use the Discovery Garden area. There just isn't a tent there. So they will be able to use it. And we're trying to figure out how to make it a little more comfortable, how to make it safe, so that it can be one more location.
Thank you, Beth. And yes, a schedule will be created for all of the different outdoor learning spaces. Principal Roman will be working with her teachers to do that. Our 15, are parents going to be allowed to volunteer in classrooms? At this time, we're going to have to probably say, unfortunately, no. We are going to be limiting the amount of visitors to the school unless it is an emergency or things like that. So at this time, we do not believe that there will be volunteers for the 2020-2021 school year at this time. Will after-school activities be available this year at school? I believe so. We're working on that. We're working on, depending on what the activity is, whether or not we'll be able to have the activities, whether they'll be virtual or whether they'll be in person. That will all be dealt with by Principal Roman based on the activity and the group size and where we are, quite frankly, in the pandemic. How old is the HVAC system in the building? Will it be a factor in the reopening plans? I don't know how old it is. I'm still trying to get that information. I do know that it's a rooftop unit that circulates fresh air into the building. As far as a factor of reopening plan, all of our HVAC systems are obviously a factor. We're concerned with the air quality just as you are. As I mentioned, we've been going to facilities meetings and meeting with different engineers to have conversations about how to best improve air quality, what things you can do. We're looking at bringing in, our filters are changed typically 3 times a year. We've upped that to at least quarterly. We'll continue to monitor that as that goes along. We're also looking at bringing in different HEPA filters and other fans and things like that that have been recommended from the engineer that we've been working with.
And Tina, I did get an email from Scott Guiteras. He said the unit was installed in 2006.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry, I didn't know that. I apologize. I'm newer to the district. I don't have all that yet.
Yeah, so it's 2006, and it does really do a nice job. He says circulating fresh air through the second floor hallways, especially.
Yes, thank you.
All right, let's.
Oh, other way.
Hold on.
One more.
I want to go. Got it.
Okay. Hey, 17 twice. All right, so I'm going to do these and then turn it over to Ed Clark for the next group. So the second 17, will there be enough staff to accommodate the arrival of more cars dropping off students and picking up students at the end of the day? So this is one of those areas that we continue to look at. Certainly we are making adjustments. We still have the loop. We need that loop to operate, but we also recognize the importance of having multiple entrances so that we don't have students congregating together. We also are going to have a longer time period for students to arrive, because that will allow students to get to school earlier, get checked in quickly, and get to class. So will there be enough staff? We certainly believe that there will be, because we're going to hire some additional temporary staff. Next question, is kindergarten going to be half day? Kindergarten, I believe, is full day, and it will be full day. Right now, we're looking at kindergarten for the first week. Our initial plan was to have it be half day because that first week was going to be testing. We are being flexible, just like we're asking you. I see Dr. Santa laughing, right? Just all aside, just as an aside, we have been working on the kindergarten issue. It seems like every day for 2 weeks, and it keeps changing because new information keeps getting provided to us from the state. So, but I can assure you, kindergarten will be full day. it may not be full day that first week. 19, how will you be sure that stable groups are maintained during recess and lunch? So very easily, and I think Tina mentioned this, or either Diane, who had a question about recess. So when your stable group will go outside for recess. They will stay together. They are not allowed to mingle with another stable group. And one of the things that many of the schools are doing, and I believe Principal Roman is going to work with the PTO, we're going to buy every classroom their own recess materials so that they don't have to worry about their materials being used by another group. They might be different colors, but they'll be stored in the classroom. They will be cleaned and wiped down after every recess and then put away.
And if
Lunches, go
if
ahead.
I just jump in really quick, actually, we had that last year. So we were doing that with me. It was by grade level though, not by class. So
Right.
what we'll have to do is then add some extra bags, some extra materials, and then split those by the grade level. And so that should be actually a pretty easy fix for us.
Correct. Thank you. So ahead of the game, ahead of the curve. And when we talk about lunches, so because of these stable groups, we know that we're actually going to do lunch for most students in the classroom. And so that's how they will maintain the stable group. We have a process, or working through a process to make sure that that happens. And some of the temporary staff that we're going to hire will be responsible for bringing lunches on carts to the classroom. They'll be covered. Almost, Tina, I want to say, are they like to-go containers or something?
Yeah, so they call them grab and go. It'll be very similar, if not exactly like the distance learning, the lunch pickup at the schools where students will go. They'll have pre-ordered, I believe when I spoke to Chartwell's the other day, there'll be a selection of 3 different items each day, some cold, some hot, depending on the day. And then that will be delivered, and they'll be in just like you would order takeout, almost in those kind of containers.
Thank you.
And one more.
Yeah, go ahead.
To jump in, one thing that parents need to be really careful, and as they start to work with their kids getting ready for kids to come back to school, is that kids will be eating their lunches in the classroom, and so that raises our risk in terms of allergies. And so our school, I know in the past at Guiteras, peanut butter has been allowed in the lunchroom at certain tables. And going forward, I believe in the unless I can think of something else, if kids have to be in their classroom, everything will have to be nut free.
So all right. So I see Tina shaking her head, but
right?
I also thought that there might be the possibility that maybe in the corner of the room, you could have peanut butter, but I don't know if that's the case. I think Tina's saying no, based on the conversation with Chartwell's, we probably can't swing that.
I think there was a concern that some students have airborne, and so it's not just if they touch surfaces.
Yep.
And so that unfortunately, and I know speaking as a parent who for many years, that's all my child ate was peanut butter. I know that that's a difficult kind of pill to swallow, but I do believe that we're going to have to make all the rooms nut free because they will be eating lunch and snacks in the room. And we would be concerned about contamination and allergies.
Absolutely. What a shame. I just had a PB&J before we started the town hall.
We'll have to do some training. I do have some information I can share with parents about alternate things, nut-free options. So I will put that on my list of to-do things that I can put in the newsletters that are about to start so that parents can start to prepare their kids.
Got it. Thank you. Will students be allowed to play in the gym? So if this is for the PE class, we're going to work with our PE teachers. The hope is that PE would occur outside. That is going to be the hope. But we certainly know that a class may be in the gym, but they're going to have to be socially distant. Sorry, they're going to have to be 6 feet apart. socially distanced. They'll have to wear their mask. That's why we really want them outside, because if they're outside, then they may be far enough apart where they could remove their mask and get some fresh air. 21, can parents create walking buses to support each other with transportation? I actually love that idea. In some places, they call it the walking school bus. It's basically the same principle. You know, a group of students are walking with a parent from the neighborhood and walking to school. That's certainly something. Hopefully everyone is wearing their mask. They're not, and they're not walking next to each other. I think that would be another way to get students to school. Will bike racks be available for students to use? So we have not had a discussion. Does Guiteras have a bike rack?
We do have one far in the back. I think it's connected with the baseball field. I actually noticed it the other day. I don't think it's used that often, but it certainly wouldn't hold a lot of bikes.
So let's do this. Let's see. So let's see if we can move that bike rack, and we'll talk to Scott. I'll ask Tina if we could see if you can shoot Scott an email, find out if we own it or the town owns it, if we can move it to a more central location and keep it secure. So maybe it would be seen, and then kids might think about using it. And then Beth, if we need another one, you'll let us know.
Absolutely. Sounds good.
All right. Teaching and learning questions. All right. You know what? Diane, I think you're up.
All right. I'm on. How many students will be in a classroom? So as Dr. Brice mentioned, we're trying to keep our class numbers low. We understand that this year that there's going to be a lot of movement between people in and out. So that is our goal. We are hoping that class size will not be higher than 22, but that's even a little bit too high. In most cases, we need to have it closer to 18. And the reason for that is that we want to make sure that our desks are 6 feet apart. So we're going through the numbers now. We've got the survey results back from families requesting distance learning. And so we're putting all of those numbers together, but that is our goal, to keep the numbers low. Who are the teachers doing distance learning? That's still being determined. We did a survey of staff. We have some staff that have medical conditions that would require them to stay home. And then we have other staff members that are asking for other reasons. So Tina is working through all of that, and we're matching staff up with grade levels that we would need distance learning for. If students participate in distance learning, what will their day look like? Will this include unified arts? Can itinerant classes be optional? So we are doing something a little bit different this fall based on our experience last spring. We're going to be using a model called Synchronous Teaching, where a teacher will be in the classroom going through the daily schedule. At key points during the day when they're introducing lessons, students who are at home and distance learning will have a schedule so that they will be joining for their instruction in that way. And this will include unified arts. The idea of not doing itinerant classes, we are not recommending that. We want our students to have exposure to the arts, to health PE, to library, but we are making some improvements based on our experience in the spring. We're looking for those lessons to be interactive for a brief amount of time, and to have some, how can I say this, engaging activities that students can do on their own during the week. So making sure that it's not adding to a student's burden of extra work to do, but at the same time making it enjoyable and being able to work it into their schedule. And number 26, how will services such as reading intervention, speech OT be delivered? How will students with IEPs be serviced? Will services such as these be pushed in, or will there be an opportunity for students to receive services outside of the classroom?
Would you like me to take this one, Diane?
Yes, please, Ed. That's yours. Go.
It's my wheelhouse. Thank you. I apologize for the glasses. I'm trying to look at this on my phone. we are working on trying to figure out the best location to provide additional services right now. Over the next week, I'm going to be sitting down with each principal in each of the elementaries, in the middle and high school, to take a look at not only the schedule, but where students who require additional services are being placed. Once that is determined, I'll then sit down with our special educators and determine where these services are going to be. They're going to be push-in services. I don't think right now we can say that we can pull students out of multiple classrooms into small groups for that direct instruction. What I am envisioning at this point is having a special educator attached to a team that may have a couple or several students who require intervention services, do a small group in the back of the room, and then possibly have students from other classrooms join virtually. Again, there's a lot of moving parts, a lot of the schedules that we're still looking at and figuring out, but I think that's the best way that we're going to be able to deliver services with fidelity moving forward.
Thank you, Ed. And number 27, will a child that enters distance learning have a specific distance learning teacher? If so, will this include kids across the district and not only kids from Guiteras? This is our homework for the next 2 days to get all of this finalized. So we're analyzing the results of the surveys. We're matching teachers and students up. It might be both. We might have some classrooms that are just full distance learning classrooms. And then we might have other students that are doing distance learning, but also connected to their classroom in their home school. If we do a full distance learning classroom, there could be some students from other schools. We're really trying to work that out. So there's a lot of moving pieces to this. And then the idea of trying to limit the number of students that we have in person in classrooms. So it's all in the works. We hope to have final answers on all of this by the end of this week, possibly Monday. As you know, we got thrown another curveball today, so we have more work to do, but we're getting very close to having that information for you. Next. Oh, other way, Beth?
Yep.
Do you want me to keep going, Dr. Brice, or do you want to?
Yeah, let me jump in.
Okay.
How do we keep kids connected to the school if they are participating in distance learning? Certainly, that's one of the things that we think is critically important. And so they will have their teachers. We believe they'll have their own teachers as well as other supports if necessary. One of the things that we recognized from the spring was the importance of doing things like some of our teachers actually had breakfast with their students in the morning. We saw that as a nice prelude to the day. And so those are the types of things to keep them connected. We also recognize this, for students that are really young, we are going to need the assistance of parents and guardians and other adults who can be at home with those students. To think that a first grader or a second grader can do all of the things necessary on their own is not something that we think is likely to occur. So it's important that we have all of these supports in place, both from the school perspective as well as from the home perspective. If a student is participating in the virtual learning option, is their schedule flexible in terms of handing in work? I would say that it's not flexible. We certainly expect that work is going to be done within a reasonable time frame. If however, there's some reason why you think that your child should get extra time, I think that's a conversation between the teacher and the parent. But what we really are trying to do is not have students get behind. And one of the ways that you prevent students from getting behind is by making sure that we've got deadlines, that we have provided advance notice. Something else we did last year in the spring, we didn't start this, but we started doing it probably midway through distance learning. Some of our co-curricular teachers would provide their schedule, their assignments for the week at the start of the week, and then students could work on them throughout the week as time permitted. And we found we got a lot of positive feedback on that as an option. What breaks will be built into the schedule for young students to have a break from mask wearing at school? As we mentioned already, we are building that outdoor classroom so that students can get outside, as well as we want all of our principals to make sure that there are breaks built into their day. It is going to be a challenge because we've got to have those breaks. We also have to have breaks so that students can get to the restrooms, wash their hands, and do all of those things. But we just want to make sure that we give all of our students and staff that opportunity to get outside, get some fresh air. What will a typical K day look like for the students coming back into the school building? So it's not going to be typical. I said this at another town hall. When you walk into a kindergarten classroom, I am so used to seeing brightly colored rugs, soft, cushy, like throw pillows and stuff. Kindergarten teachers are a special bunch, and really are able to do wonders with our youngest learners. Unfortunately, because of the pandemic, we have to remove a bunch of these materials that are sort of very porous and could hold germs and things like that. So we're removing those items. So the room is going to look more sparse, not as well, not as brightly colored and things like that. Having said it, you should expect that there is a schedule of activities that when students get to school, they'll start. And I think our kindergarten teachers are going to spend some time working with students to make sure that they pick up the routine of the day. They'll do reading at a certain time. They'll do mathematics at a certain time. They'll do bathroom breaks at a certain time. They will go and wash their hands before they come back for a snack and things like that. And we will make sure that every school and your school principal, Roman, will put out a typical, what does the day look like for kindergarten students, just because we know, first year parents are really going to be interested to figure out what that looks like. And so we will provide that.
And if you don't mind me jumping in, Dr. Brice, I want to assure parents, because I know as a kindergarten parent, oftentimes it's your first experience sending your child to school. And yes, we are telling you that it's going to look different than the typical day. But our kindergarten teachers are so creative, and they're already brainstorming ways to make sure materials are provided to each child in a bag that only that child will get to use, but so that they can do different things like stations might have looked, but that they would have their own materials at their own desks. They are looking at what it would look like if a child could sit on the floor with a lap desk that could be wiped down, that was theirs to use. Those kinds of things, they're already thinking carefully about, so that I don't want our K parents to be frightened about what, teachers are amazing people, and they are the most creative, especially some of our primary teachers, at really making sure the school relates to kids. And yes, these are uncertain times, but I just want to assure parents that we're working towards trying to, and at every grade level, trying to make school still fun. It will, the classrooms are going to look different, but that doesn't mean there isn't going to be fun, and there isn't going to be laughter, and there isn't going to be color. I want parents to know that, because that's what's important for me as a parent. And I know some of my parents are probably feeling the same way. So pictures to come as soon as I can get them available.
And then if a student opts into distance learning for the first trimester, how will they be assigned to classes and acclimate into the school community upon their return? Well, here's what's going to happen. we certainly will have an opportunity. We will ask parents toward the end of the first trimester if they want to continue with distance learning or they want their student to return. Based on what they tell us, we will then schedule their students appropriately, and we won't know until then. Hopefully, hopefully we'll be on the other side of dealing with this pandemic. I just don't know. I don't think any of us know until we get into it. But without a vaccine, we know that we're gonna be dealing with this for a while. Next questions.
Oh gosh, my computer is funky today. Here we go.
Yep. If the school per RIDO moves from full in-person to limited in-person, how will the teachers ensure direct attention to distance learner to avoid interruptions in learning? So here's what's going to happen. At the elementary level, it actually is going to be pretty interesting because, so if you are a fourth grade teacher, you will teach your fourth graders every day from a distance, except for the one day when they come into the building. And so many of the same strategies and techniques and rituals and routines that you have in person, you would have when they are at a distance. The only difference is that they would be in school one day per week. Are teachers being provided professional development? Have you partnered with institutes such as Highlander Institute in Providence? So yes, teachers will be provided professional development. Teachers received a significant dosage of professional development, primarily around technology and how to integrate technology into their teaching in the spring. We clearly have more days to do that this upcoming year, and we plan on doing that. One of the things that we are having conversations about is making sure that professional development is the right professional development for the right people at the right time so that they can take it back and use it in their classroom to really work with our young people. That's what they've said they need, and we want to give that to them. I don't know if Diane's worked with the Highlander Institute, but most of our professional development is going to be something that we believe is going to be teacher-led and teacher-directed. Diane?
We did work with the Highlanders several years ago, and from that experience, we hired Tom Driscoll, who is our Director of Digital Learning, and he's actually works for a national professional development organization called EdTech Teacher. So he not only provides professional development within our district for a certain number of days, he does professional development around the country and in other Rhode Island districts. So he's very knowledgeable, and he's developed a cadre of teachers across the district, teacher leaders around technology. And so they also provide professional development.
And I would jump in and say, you know, for those educators that are on here as well, being parents and educators, Tom Driscoll's an amazing person to follow through Twitter. He actually has worked himself by sharing some of his information and his knowledge with the Highlander Institute, and has done some training for them. So we are so incredibly blessed to have him in our district.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Next question. BWRSD will continue to offer COSI, but what happens if the state moves to a limited in-person model? Will families need to reserve a spot ahead of time, or will all students signed up continue to attend? It just so happens, you know what? I don't want to answer this question. I'm going to leave this question to, I don't know, Tina Fogel.
Hi, we just had a meeting with Amy today, and we've been working through with COSI. And so obviously one of the things that we are concerned about is continuing as much of the stable groups as possible. And so if we move from full in-person to limited in-person, we believe we'll still be able to offer COSI, but it may not be at each of the individual schools. because Cozy is technically considered, even though they're associated with the district, they're technically considered a childcare center. They follow the guidelines from the Department of Health as well. And so I believe Amy indicated that we would be able to, they would consolidate it to probably 2 buildings, and they'd be able to offer a little bit more, but we would be keeping with the limited numbers and things like that. So we will continue. So if you are interested in Cozy, you should sign up for Cozy. If we do move to limited in person, we may have to, depending on what the numbers the state gives us, we may have to make a determination as to who receives childcare or not based on, you know, the criteria that the Department of Health provides to us.
That might be it.
Mm-hmm.
Woohoo!
So, can I ask one question, Tina, as the principal, since this information is new about Cozy, would
Yep. And Beth, do you want to stop sharing your screen?
Sure. Would Guiteras, is that one of the ones that we have a high population of students that use Guiteras, although we have a small school? Is Guiteras one of the ones she's considering if we had to minimize the number of schools that had Cozy? You're muted.
I do that all the time. You think after all this time I would get used to that and stop doing that. I know that Hugh Cole, obviously for Warren, would be, she did not indicate which Bristol elementary school, but I'm sure they would look at the numbers and make a determination as to which, you know, because if we go to limited, obviously there will be less people in the buildings. And so we may be able to use other spaces. And so I think we'd probably have to just look at space at each of the Bristol schools to see which of the schools could accommodate the limited in person as well as Cozy without mixing. Obviously, we'd want to make sure that we could maybe try not to mix areas and things like that to avoid, you know, excess cleaning, not that we, you know, to avoid all that kind of overflow and everything. So we meet with her again on Friday to try and finalize some plans. So I'll have more information about what it would look like in limited then.
Thank you. So, Dr. Brice, tell me what your next step is in this process. Are we opening it up for more?
So now we open up the floor, and people, if those of you that know, you can, if you click on participants, and you can raise your hand, and we will call on you. And if that doesn't work for you, all right, I see someone named Victor has raised his hand. Victor. Okay.
Victor is unmuted.
Victor.
You can go ahead and speak.
Okay. All right, let's come back to Victor. Rose, yeah, let's go with Jessica's iPad.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. So, hi, my name is Jessica Loftus. My children are just starting at Guiteras this year. So my biggest concern, I think, is have there been any studies done to show that a child wearing a mask for 7 hours a day isn't going to cause them to have any long-term consequences due to that? And I don't know if that's something you guys can answer, but I think that's definitely a concern for parents, that these small children are going to be breathing into a mask all day long.
Yes, certainly that's not something that isn't within our purview. I would suggest that maybe you go to the Department of Health website. I'm sure they have FAQs, and they're the ones that have provided us with the health related guidance, or maybe see if there are any other studies from around the country. But certainly we share the concern. That's why we are setting up the outside classroom in the tent We also want other opportunities for students to get outside and to be able to remove their mask, but also be socially distant. So we are in agreement that it's not an optimal situation. I can tell you, Diane and I walked 4 of our buildings in mask in July, and it was not the most pleasant of experiences.
Right.
So, right.
Jessica?
So we are
Yes.
concerned.
Jessica, you might also want to check in with your pediatrician. They might have some information for you or be able to address your concerns.
Well, I mean, my children are healthy kids. They don't have any risk factors. I'm just looking at in general. I mean, I know kids are going back to school all over the country. Just wondering what the long-term consequences would be for every child, not just my children.
Yeah, absolutely.
About
Thank
Margaret.
you. Thank you. Marguerite Fitzgerald.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hi. So my question is what happens if we've chosen to send our students to school, but then as we get closer to the actual, I want to call it, D-Day, the day that they're going to school, we're either on one side of the fence where we're at home doing distance learning. So my situation, let me just explain it. I'm an educator as well, but I've been laid off. And so I've been conflicted. What do I do? Do I keep my child home and do distance learning with her, or do I send her to school? And so I'm just wondering what happens if we decide last minute to make a switch. I know that you've asked us to make a decision for planning purposes, which I completely understand, but I've just been going back and forth almost on a daily basis on what I should do in terms of my family. And so I just don't know, like, would they be denied either option if we decide, we either want to put her in school or we want her to take her out of school?
So great question. All right. So I'm a parent, right? I approach this from, what do I want for my own 14-year-old? So 2 things. Number 1, I think it is absolutely important for you to reach what you believe is the best decision for your child. And once you make that decision, then the school system will work to accommodate you within, the bounds that we can. I would say that the default decision that you're making, if you haven't submitted anything, is that your child's going to be in person. What you really want to know is whether or not, if you get close to that time, whether or not you could switch to distance learning. And here's what I would say about that. It's probably easier to make a decision to opt into distance learning now while we're still building the distance learning classrooms than it is to make that decision 3 weeks from now. Because by that time, we are probably going to have limited space. And because we have limited space, it's going to be really difficult for us to accommodate you. So if you've got any inkling that distance learning might be something that you're thinking about, it's more advantageous to opt in now than later. I will tell you that we already have approximately 25% of our students have been signed up for distance learning. Somewhere right around 800 students. We have 3,200 students in the district. And so once we get that set, what would then be available would be if your student got sick, right? Normal childhood illness, not COVID, and was home, would they be able to use their Chromebook and log into their classroom? They would be able to do it. It wouldn't be what you're talking about, Marguerite. So I just think it's just a decision you need to make. Take some time, but I would make a decision. As you can see, the timeline for when the governor's going to make her decision keeps getting pushed out, but the timeline for the district to build the distance learning, we're going to do that. As Diane mentioned, we're doing that this week.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Landon was next. So we're going to go with Landon.
Hi, how's it going? This is Genevieve. I'm actually Landon's mom.
Hey, Landon's mom.
He has an account before I do. He's an incoming kindergartner, and so this has been quite interesting to say the least. But he's also been going to Cozy Camp, and now that we just found out today, and I don't know if maybe this is a question for Tina if she had the conference call, because they're supposed to be wrapping up this Friday, but they've said that they do that so that the school has 2 weeks to prepare, and I can reach out to them too. Has there been any talk now, like I have 1 month of no care for my 5-year-old, and both my husband and I work full time, and it is impossible to get care right now.
Yeah.
So just wondering if there's been any word that Cozy Camp might get extended 2 weeks.
So when Tina and I were on that call, that I think that call was at 10:30, and we didn't get on the superintendent's leadership team's call until 11:30. So we didn't know at that time. So we haven't had that conversation with Amy Bratzos, but it's one that we certainly will have. I don't know if we'll be able to extend, but it's something that we will at least look into.
I wonder just if it's a staffing issue too, because they I mean, we'll absolutely discuss it with them. I don't know. I'm going to shoot her an email now that we're talking about it. That's a good point. I never thought of it that way.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. I see Adam McGovern. Adam.
Okay, thank you. Are all students getting Chromebooks this year, or just the students that are going to participate in distance learning?
So our plan is to provide a Chromebook, an assigned Chromebook to every student. So here's what makes it different. So students in grades 6 through 12 have an assigned Chromebook that they are required to bring to school and take home every evening. What we learned from the spring with distance learning is that what we were doing is providing Chromebooks right out of the classroom carts to families, and we were providing one per family. So given that we think that and we thought earlier in the year that this was going to be a year where we're going to need more Chromebooks, we have placed 2 orders. The first order was for 1,600. We ordered them in May, the end of May. They're due to arrive, we believe, the end of August. We placed a second order for 1,200 at the end of June. The delivery time for those is the middle of December. So all across the country, Chromebooks are the hot item because every school system, whether you're New York City and LA Unified or you're Bristol Warren, is ordering Chromebooks to expand our capacity so that we can have these tools for our young people. Right now, we have approximately 3,000 Chromebooks. When we get the 1,600, our goal is to make sure that at the K-5 level, we assign a Chromebook to every student. I don't know if they're going to take them home right away, because that also requires us to have bags for everyone. But we certainly would be providing them to the students who have whose parents have chosen distance learning as well.
And if I could just ask, thank you very much. If I could just ask one more, will this district or the state have a list of approved masks, and are face shields an approved option?
So the state, I don't believe, has in the guidance, and we've been all over the guidance from the Department of Education, the Department of Health. They have not said, oh, you need to use you have to use an N95 or a KN95. What they've said is, as a matter of fact, their guidance talks about a face covering, that face covering can be a disposable mask. It can be some sort of covering, a scarf, or it can actually be a mask. And so I would suggest that you go to their website because it may be in the Department of Health, in their FAQs for COVID-19. They may list appropriate masks. We also are not requiring students to wear face shields, although as a district, we are providing face shields to staff, and we're providing it to them, and it is optional. We actually think it's pretty important. We believe that Dr. Fauci suggested that aerosol spray may get into the eyes, and because it's sort of a membrane and wet and moist, that might be another way that individuals could get sick. So that's why we're buying face shields for staff.
Dr. Brice, can I just clarify that a face shield would be in addition to a mask? So your
Correct.
child would still have a mask on underneath, and the shield would come over if you choose to do that. But we're not suggesting that people have to do that by any means. We are doing it for staff members, though, as an option.
Yep.
So you wouldn't be able to just wear a face shield without a mask.
That is correct.
Because it's open on the bottom.
Yep.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Good catch, Diane. Vicky Mello.
Hi.
Hi.
Husband just started cooking on the stove right behind me. So these are the feedback. It's that time of night. My question's more around sort of the softer social emotional skills. I have, an upcoming first grader, really excited about seeing her friends again and going back to school. Obviously, it's been an interesting few months for all of us. I'm just curious about what, if any, resources will be available to families, all families, as we navigate going back to school from a counseling perspective. And how are we maintaining healthy social emotional growth for the children, particularly in the younger years where it's so foundational and important to their education. And so right now I'm planning on sending my daughter back. As we all know, we could be sent home in a few weeks. My husband and I both work full time. And frankly, I think all kids need more than we can provide in that type of a scenario. And so I'm just curious if you're planning any resources to be shared with all of the students and families, or if it's even on your radar.
Yeah, so it's certainly on our radar, right? So social emotional learning is a primary consideration for us as a district. I don't think you can have high levels of academic achievement without having what I consider to be a robust and comprehensive social emotional program. So two things, and then I saw Ed, he's here. Ed can offer a couple other things. First and foremost, we are requiring morning meetings at the elementary level. I absolutely believe it is a way for all students to connect, for teachers to check in, to make sure that students are doing what we need them to do, and that our staff has an opportunity to sort of gauge the social emotional well-being of students. And so that we're doing that at the elementary level. I mentioned earlier, some teachers having breakfast with their students during distance learning. Other teachers had lunch with their students. And it was just it was a period where they could just eat and talk, and it wasn't so focused on academics that we didn't help to sort of build up each other as the collective. We're gonna what I call real advisory at the secondary level, which means that we have a responsibility to make sure that our staff have prompts, that they understand why they're using that prompt and how to use that prompt to elicit responses, and to have students start thinking through their feelings and things like that. So those are the two big things that we built into our plan. I know that Ed has a few other items that he might talk about for social emotional learning as well.
Yeah, during the spring, when everything shut down, our psychologists and social workers got together and created a pretty extensive list of community resources that families could access for a myriad of different issues that may be arising. Student social emotional health, of course, being at the top of the list. Through the summer, it connected to our extended school year program, we actually had a psychologist and social worker work through the summer, staying connected with some families who, we're worried about the students who are being, a little disconnected, maybe a little more vulnerable. It's and just trying to stay connected and continuing to provide, as much support as we can. What they have developed is, it's almost like a social emotional referral process, where if, any member of our staff, are concerned about a student or, a group of students, even siblings, and even if we have, information that we're getting from parents or, other concerned people, we now have this process where someone from the school, one of our staff members will reach out to the family, check in with the student, provide those resources. We're also, in addition to, these levels of support, we are looking at, or I should say, exploring different social emotional curricula that are out there. Some folks in the district have already been trained in certain approaches, and we're taking a look at what their training entails. Is it something that's going to be effective for us moving forward, or do we need to provide some supplemental training, not only to our mental health professionals, but to all staff, in responding to kids who obviously are experiencing things that we never experienced as kids, and just trying to make sure that we have the supports in place so that they're successful as possible.
All right, thank you, Vicki. Jessica's iPad.
I have one more question.
Okay.
So I know that some school districts, and even my son last year in a different school in the Bristol school system, was not given homework in his second grade class. And I think that this year, with them being stuck in a classroom all day and wearing their mask, to come home and be able to play outside with their siblings and ride bikes and do sports is going to be really important. Have they given any thought to reducing or omitting homework, so that, especially at the elementary school level, kids can have some time to just be kids and play outside and do things after school?
I think so. I have a different approach to that question. I think any work that students are asked to do at home should be meaningful, should be age specific, and should not require, right? So if you mentioned, Jessica, your child's in the second grade.
Well, last year my son was in second grade at Rockwell, and second grade at Rockwell does not do homework.
Yep. So I would actually think that third grade, right, will probably do some homework, but it might not be more than, say, 20 or 30 minutes per day, which would give plenty of time to go out and to ride your bike, play sports, all those other things. And remember, one of the things that we probably haven't quite mentioned, but is critical, is that we want all of our students to read every day. Right. So even if they don't have an assigned homework, we still want them to spend 15 or 20 minutes reading every day.
Absolutely. I worry because some other grades that my kids have been in, they've been giving extreme amount of homework. And I just worry because then the child doesn't enjoy school anymore when they're spending an awful lot of time doing homework at night. So
absolutely.
Just a concern.
You know what? No, and it's the right concern. And if it happens, please reach out to Principal Roman, reach out to myself or Dr. Santa, because here's one of the things that we also don't. So we don't necessarily see this as much at the elementary level, but typically what happens at the secondary level is that one teacher gives an assignment. The assignment is supposed to take 15 minutes, but some student needs double that. And then the next class gives an assignment, it's supposed to take 30 minutes, it takes 30. So you're already at an hour. And the cumulative impact of all of those assignments. And so we want kids to learn, to continue learning outside of school, but to your point, we don't want it to be something that causes school students to to turn off and to believe that school is not the place that they want to be.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, let's try Victor again. Can we try Victor? Victor?
Victor, you're unmuted. Whoops, you were unmuted.
Victor, if you would feel comfortable sending me an email with your question, I do have my phone next to me and I might get it right away and I could share it.
Yeah, he's unmuted again.
Yeah.
Hello?
I don't think he has speaker.
Okay.
You want to
All
go to Rosa Avila?
Yep, and why don't we put him back on mute?
Done.
Yep. All right, Rosa. Rosa Avila.
Hi, sorry about that. I just saw your unmute thing. Hi, Dr. Brice. This is Rosa. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
As per my email to you and Mrs. Roman, it's been a difficult decision of mine because my kids definitely want to go back to school and back to normal. But my main concern is I'm really concerned about the airborne particles in the room. And I don't know, I may have missed a part of your session as I was cooking and trying to listen at the same time in the beginning of the session. But my concern is, so I have a few questions and I'll try to make it quickly. But one is the indoors. I understand they're all going to wear masks.
All right, Rosa, we just lost you for a moment.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Sorry. So my concern is the airborne particles in the classroom. You did mention that you will have about 22 students or less. And my concern is I have a child in elementary, one going to first grade and fifth grade, sixth grade in middle school. So it's his first year, and I missed your middle school session. So I'm hoping that there's a recorded session for me to stay updated on that one. But I may have missed the HEPA filters and how because you mentioned also the fan in the rooms. So my thing is, my doctor explained to me that although that, it's really our decisions, but he pretty much explained to me that the issue is the airborne particles in the air. So if kids are going to be in the room for more than 4 to 8 hours, that's going to be in a poorly ventilated space. It's going to go around. So my issue is, even with a fan, you're just blowing it around. So what is safe measures that the school is taking for that? And you mentioned 22 people, and my concern is, how are they going to stay 6 feet apart with 22 kids in the classroom? So I don't know if the middle school is a lot wider. I went to high school and middle school.
The middle school has fewer kids because the middle school, we have split the students into 2 groups, A through L and K through Z. So the middle school has 2 separate groups.
And Rosa, at Guiteras, you have a daughter that's
A through K, sorry.
Into 4th grade, and in our 4th grade classrooms, we can't fit any more than 18 students in that. That's what we measured. We've done the 6 feet apart with the desks.
Okay.
So students, there will be a max of 18 students, I believe, that we can fit into the classroom.
So the other issue is, you mentioned students in a class for 4 hours. So I can absolutely guarantee you that there will not be, that no student will sit in class for 4 hours straight, right? So a couple of things. First and foremost, And we have a district pediatrician who is a part of the state work group to try to come up with guidelines to assist all school districts. We're reading the CDC guidelines before they started playing around with the guidelines. We're reading the RIDO guidelines. So there are a couple of huge preventative steps that we're taking. Number one, everybody's wearing a mask.
Sorry.
Everyone's wearing a mask, right? So there isn't a situation where you're going to be in a building and people aren't going to have their mask on their, covering their face, covering their nose and their mouth. So that's number one. Number two is we also are going to focus on ensuring that all of the windows are open, that the reason why we want fans is to actually bring in fresh air and just to help circulate, right? So again, people have masks on, but the air is not going to be directly blowing on them. It's just going to be directed towards the door to make sure that we are circulating air. We are changing filters. So we are required to change them twice a year. We change them 3 times a year. We're actually going to move to changing them quarterly. We talked today about whether or not we can get HEPA filters. Number one, we don't think we can get our hands on any. And number two, they actually don't work in our system, right? So people are talking about, what is it, the MERV 13s,
Yes.
HEPA filters. And so we wouldn't be able to put those into our units in the classroom, we believe, at this time. In terms of the decision-making process, we too are concerned about ventilation. People have been emailing me asking, what is the mix between, are we going to open it up to full capacity? We certainly do believe that we're going to be able to increase the airflow, fresh air into the building through the air handler. But I think more than anything, we have to get kids out of the classroom, outside, where they can have an opportunity to take their mask off, to listen, to learn, but not be in a classroom. It's extra hard at the elementary level because we have so many students, but you already know that students are going to be outside at recess. They're going to be outside, hopefully at least once outside for a class. So that's 2. They'd probably get outside again for some sort of break where they could be socially distant and wear their mask. What this really means is that it's going to cut significantly into instructional time. And we recognize that there's just nothing you can do about it. You can't move this many kids and have this many precautions and still expect that students are going to spend 330 minutes on instruction when there are just too many moving parts. I don't know. And here's what I tell all parents, just as a parent myself. I think as a parent, you have to feel confident about the decision that you're making. First and foremost, our responsibility is going to be to keep as many students and staff safe as possible, hopefully everybody. And that's why it's the first thing in our plan. Everything else comes after that. But you're right to have concerns. There are no easy answers to pulling this off for all students every single day.
Thank you. I'm happy to hear that they're going to be outside too. That helps my decision as well. But
Yep.
My next question is, I'll make it quick on this one and hopefully, but I was also told if you are, especially from someone that's from the high school, that, so my kids are very into sports. My husband and I played. And so my concern is, so if we choose distant learning, we were told that they can't even play sports if that's given even to students, and possibly not now.
So you're not talking about an elementary. So you're asking a general question.
I'm like middle school now, and
Okay.
I know this is Guiteras, but it's more of you know, I mean, are they even going to play outside in recess
So,
together?
yeah, so let me answer both of those. So yes, they will be outside at recess, as we already mentioned, but they will be within their stable group. They will, if they're socially distanced, they'll be able to take off their mask. If they're not, they're going to have to keep their mask on, which then means that, you know, something where they could spread out and maybe toss a ball back and forth or something like that. So we're going to try our best to accommodate that. For the middle school and the high school, we expect very limited sports, if any, to include potentially cross country, girls and boys, and tennis. That's all that we think are going to be available. So there aren't going to be any other sports. We have no idea of what potential sports we might have at the middle school level, but it certainly wouldn't be more than those two. And will students be able to participate even if they have chosen distance learning? We would allow students to participate even if they chose distance learning.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Dr. Brice, I have a question from Victor, if you want me to ask it.
Yep, go ahead.
So the question is coming from Helen. Her daughter Cecilia is in 4th grade and she has a son, Luke, coming into kindergarten. So her question is about transportation. So it might be for Tina. For transportation, they get, in the past, her daughter's been picked up from a different location from her home. And in the past, that was an option on the form, but this year there was not an option for that. What should I do to ensure that they get picked up at the correct location?
So unfortunately,
I'm gonna let you answer this one.
due to the ridership limits. And so right now we're being told that our ridership limits are between 21 and 24 per bus. Normally, is my sound reverberating?
Yes.
A little bit.
I'm going to shut my camera off just to see if it's better. All right. So normally we're being told that normally we transport about 2,600 students out of our 3,200 students for 19 buses on 3 tiers. That's with a capacity of anywhere between, I think it's 71 is a full bus. Usually we run the buses around, you know, between 50 and 60 students. That ridership is being at this time reduced to between 21 and 24. We have heard some rumors that there may be some information that it may increase slightly, but we believe only by 5 or 10 at the most, not up to full capacity. Having said that, we had to make the difficult decision of determining what students we would transport. And right now, based on the guidance and the fact that transportation is supposed to be a stable pod, so the students travel on the bus to and from school are supposed to be the exact same students, we had to make the difficult decision not to allow for a different bus AM or PM. And we knew, we knew that that was going to be a hardship for parents. And I don't say that lightly. I understand that whether it's before school or after school, that childcare issues are, you know, as a parent who has worked since my kids were little, I get that. We just could not ensure that we would have space on the bus or that we could continue to keep that static, stable pod where students were assigned a seat. And so unfortunately at this time, we had to make the decision that students take the same bus in the AM as they do in the PM. They'll be assigned a seat. They'll be, you know, as they enter the bus, if they don't have a mask, which we're hoping all students enter with a mask, but they will be given a mask. They'll also receive hand sanitizer as they climb onto the bus, and then they'll be directed to their assigned seats. They'll sit face forward. Right now, 1 to a seat. Again, I don't know if that guidance will change, but that's what it is right now. We could not schedule those students having different bus runs. For instance, bus 32, you know, there's a different group on the way there as there would be on the way home. We just could not do that. So unfortunately, we had to make that difficult decision. We did say as a group that we were going to revisit that as the school year went on. And I think we had decided, and Beth was on my transportation group, that We may look at it monthly to try and see if, based on ridership and numbers and guidance, if we were able to change that. But my long-winded answer is, unfortunately, students, it needs to be the same bus route to and from school to ensure safety of all our students, staff, and families.
Any other questions? Oh, I see Katya. All right, let's see if we can. Yep,
hello.
there you go. Hi.
Hi, nice to see everyone. I have a couple questions about the distance learning. Did I understand correctly that children will have different teacher for in-person learning and distance learning?
So if a student, if you as the parent choose distance learning, it is likely that the teacher that you have is not the same teacher that your student would get if they were attending school every day.
Okay, how about
It's just not possible at the elementary level. It is likely at the secondary level.
Does it mean that the curriculum will differ?
Different?
No.
Absolutely, no, it won't. And Diane will give you details on that.
So the curriculum will be the same whether you're in a distance learning classroom or in person. We're going to keep that consistent. In the event that we start in person and then go to distance learning, teachers will maintain the same curriculum and using the same tools. So we made it a point this year to make sure that we had quality instructional materials that also have an online component so that there wouldn't be an interruption to learning. So everyone will have the same curriculum and be using the same tools.
Does it mean that if children move from in-person to like partial distance learning, you like keeping those groups separate anyways, like distance learning and in-person, even if they move online for whatever reason?
I think I know what you're asking, and to the extent possible, we will keep students together with the same teacher that they start the year with for that continuity, because we wouldn't want students to all of a sudden have to establish another relationship. However, if it's at the end of the trimester, then that's different. We would try to get them back into their home school in the classroom that they would have been in if they went to in-person. So so we have some families that have signed up for distance learning for the full year, and then others that are just signing up for trimester 1.
Which brings me to the next question. Now you're saying that you're limiting the classroom capacity to 18 children. What if after the first trimester you will have more than 18 children wanting to be in the classroom? What are you going to do?
That is a very good question. And we're still working out numbers to that. So we don't have the answer to that, but we'll be looking for classrooms that will be at that capacity. Another option might be that within schools, some classrooms are larger than others. Like, for example, I know Guiteras has one classroom that's actually a double classroom space. So, well, not right now. I know that you have support specialists in that room. I'm talking about.
We don't anymore. There's a wall now.
There's a wall now. Okay. So, but in any event, if it's not that space, we would be looking for other spaces. So in the event that there is a grade level where there was a higher number, we would look for another space for them, a larger classroom within that school.
Will the children who are do distance learning have the homework on top of like distance learning?
Another thing I don't know, and Dr. Brice, if you want to jump in, but I don't think that we discussed that this year we're also setting limits for distance learning time, for screen time. So if they do have homework, teachers need to take into account that we don't want them sitting in front of a computer screen for 6.5 hours a day. So we're setting a limit by grade level. And so at that point, we would ask that the homework be something that they can do off screen. And as a follow-up to the conversation earlier, we will recommend to staff and that they limit the amount of homework because of students being in school, wearing a mask. We want them outdoors playing, and that homework be limited and that it be very focused. So we'll be revisiting that as well.
So, and I think, all right, so in order for us to successfully get through this, and it goes back to the earlier question about social emotional learning, right? We have to be socially emotionally aware enough not to have students taxed or overburdened by too much homework that is not very focused on the key concepts and skills that we absolutely want students to learn. And so that's going to be part of the conversation that we have to have. But I can tell you that it is absolutely imperative, if we want students to be high performing, we have to balance the academic demand of what we're asking them to do with social emotional supports, so that they've got enough support so that they can handle the demand. And as we move up with more supports, we can move up with more demand. But that's something that we absolutely have to do. And work that they do at home. I don't even know why we call it homework anymore, since anybody can work from home. We also need to sort of rethink. It's almost like continuous learning. And we want students to engage in continuous learning throughout the year, throughout the summer, just as we as adults do.
Well, I asked because last spring, when everybody was doing distance learning, the end of the day was the end of the distance learning. There were no extra homework assigned, and I'm talking about the second grade.
Yep. We'll continue to look at that.
Okay. My other question is, have you considered, is there such an option at all as a homeschooling curriculum? Is it offered by the school district at all as an option?
So it is not offered by. So homeschooling is something that a parent would choose to do. It is completely separated from the district. The only thing that the parent would be required to do is submit a form, both to the principal and to myself, for our signatures. But what it would mean is that you wouldn't have access to our curriculum, wouldn't have access to our resources, to our teachers, any of those things. So you would effectively have to go and find all of those things, find the curriculum, find the resources, and work with your student. It's not something that I advise. And
it just came up as a concern, as like of the quality of learning in this in all this situation and circumstances, whether it's distance learning or in person.
Yeah, so distance learning, we can assure you that distance learning is going to be similar to what students get in the classroom, and that we're going to be very focused on our core academics, as well as making sure that we have some additional co-curricular activities. Distance learning, there are a lot of people even during this time that have tried to sell districts, ours included, with some sort of distance learning or other curriculum, and we have said no, we're not interested.
Thank you. And I guess it's my last question. For students enrolled in distance learning, what will be the school lunch options? Will they be provided as they did in the spring?
We absolutely will do that. Tina, you want to weigh in?
Yes, we will be working with Chartwells. We are not sure if we'll have the 2 locations like we did last time, or 3 with Hope in Maine, or whether it will be distributed from each individual school. So for instance, Guiteras' families would go to Guiteras. We're still working. I do meet with, Kim needed a vacation. So I meet with her next Tuesday, and we will
Vacation? What's that?
I know. We'll be hashing out all those details as far as how that will work. But we do believe that students who, students who have selected distance learning will have the option to receive meals. We just need to figure out how that distribution will go and whether or not Hope and Maine, who I'm sure will continue to be a partner. They were a fantastic partner over last distance learning period. And we'll also need to make sure that we do it in a way, because as we mentioned before, we're trying to limit visitors to the buildings to make sure that everyone is safe. You know, what is the best and safest way to both distribute the food to make sure students are eating, as well as to make sure that, you know, we're not allowing extra people that don't need to be in the building. So we'll be working that out, and we should have more information at the end of next week to share with everyone.
Grab and go carts outside.
Yeah, it would be something like that. I just
Yep.
don't know if it would be at each school or if there would be one central location. Or I'll have to work that out with Kim.
Yep.
Just remembered about one more question. Will the kids who sign for distance learning, will they be in the same kind of group with their peers from last year? Like, will they actually recognize the faces from last year? Will they meet their friends at least online?
So I think the first thing that we're going to try to do is we're going to try to keep students in a school together, but it all depends on numbers. And so, for instance, one of our grades has 80 some students over 4 schools that have been requested. So what that really means is we need 4 teachers. In that instance, we might be able to keep every school has a 4th grade teacher that is teaching that particular subject. But the individual teacher may or may not be from that school. I think where it gets difficult is where we get really sort of smaller numbers, where you only have like 53 students. Then the question is, how do we group 53 students from 4 schools so that all the students can stay with their friends? It may just not be possible.
Well, if with any consideration, this can be, considered and, taken into account.
Absolutely.
They probably enjoy seeing familiar faces when on Google Meets or Zoom meetings or whatever.
Absolutely. We'll do our best to keep, so we may not be able to keep them all together, but in those cases, we'll make this commitment. In the cases where we can't keep everybody together, we'll keep enough of them together so that they have some familiarity even in the distance learning environment.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
– Dr. Brice, I just had one other email from a parent, and she asked, will the children doing distance learning have access to the same materials, both technology and workbooks and things like that, as the students that are in-person learning? I believe the answer to that is yes, correct?
Yep. Diane?
Yes, that's correct. Yep.
So, all right, I'm looking at the clock. It's 8 o'clock.
Wow,
Let's
a button.
Yeah, you know what? We're rocking and rolling. So are there?
So
Yep. Are there any more questions? And by the way, you know what? I thought that we were probably done with town halls. I don't know, but I think given the fact that we're moving it back, that we may have to figure out whether or not we're going to do another town hall, or maybe Principal Roman might do a town hall, and it, with parents. So it's something that we will at least think about.
You have a question from Helen, Dr. Brice.
Okay. Helen? Helen, your hand is raised.
Hi, yes, this is Helen.
Hi.
Can you hear me? Oh, good.
Yes.
So I'm sorry, I did send Ms. Roman an email. So Ms. Roman, you can ignore it now and enjoy your vacation. I was just concerned about transportation. My children get picked up not at my home address. They get picked up at a different location where they receive their care before and after school. But that wasn't an option on the form I filled out online. Is there more to come? Deadline? Do I have to just be patient and wait? Let me know.
So Helen, do they go to the same location both before and after school?
Yes, they do.
Okay, do you want to just shoot me an email and I'll make sure to update our transportation to include that. It's tina.fogel, FOGELL @bwrsd.org. And I'll make sure to add you to the transportation form with the correct address to make sure that your students are appropriately transported.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, Principal Roman, since you're on vacation, you wanna close us out?
Vacation is relative, right, Dr. Brice? Right now. I did get a little sunburn today, though. I don't know if anyone noticed. I forgot the sunscreen, so make sure you're careful with your sunscreen because we don't see the light of day that often. And so thank you, everybody. I just want to reiterate again, thank you to Dr. Brice, to Dr. Santa, to Tina, to Ed, to Rose. You have done so many of these meetings. I've actually joined a couple of them, so I knew what to expect. And in every one, I learned new information as well through the questions that parents were asking. And I hope tonight we put some of your worries at rest, or at least gave you answers to some questions that you just needed in order to feel like you could do your job as a parent or make your decisions. And again, we want to reiterate that everybody's different. Please take the time tonight to really think over what your decisions are. We are hoping that most people will make those decisions by tomorrow because, we do need to get our planning in. If you have questions, you are going to get something back at you that I'm on vacation. But if you have questions that didn't get answered tonight and you need an answer, feel free to email me. I'm going to answer you in between, children asking questions and doing other things. So please ask those questions. Reach out if you need anything. I am here. Many of my teachers are available for answering questions too. I know some parents have reached out to them already. So, enjoy your summer and we look forward to seeing you in whatever capacity that is, you and your children, whether it's through virtual or in person, and we will keep you updated as changes or updates as best as we can. So thank you.
You know what? Thank you, Beth. And before I see Katya has her hand to raise.
Oh, there she is. Okay.
Yep. Rose, can you unmute her, please?
I filled the distance learning form back in July. Will I have to fill it up again now, or is it on file already with the school?
No, if you already filled it out, we'll assume that you feel the same way. Okay. If there's any changes, you will need to let me know that. If you made a decision and then you want to change that decision, please let me know as soon as possible.
Thank you.
Jenny, Rose, can you unmute Jenny?
By the way, thank you, Jenny. Jenny's our PTO president. She's our superstar who does all.
I just wanted to clarify because with the distance learning form, I thought that we had to send in a confirmation to confirm our designation for distance learning or not. Whether we did it early on in July, we had to do it again. So, you extended.
Yeah, I mean, that is the process that we've been using. But I think at this point, if you're on the call, if you tell us, and shoot Beth a quick email, we'll just confirm that you're on the list. We actually shared the list with principals today.
Oh, okay.
So this is the first time that they got the list.
Okay.
So and really, if there's no change, you're included. If there's no change in your decision, there's no change, it's already included in the distance learning group.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for everything you're doing. Folks, again, thank you for your time. Thank you. I know it's a holiday. Thank you for taking, not a holiday, but the summer. Thank you for taking time out of your day to come. This is really important. Thank you for your flexibility. We are learning every day. We continue to sharpen our plan to make it meet the needs of students and staff by putting health and safety first. Thank you for Principal Roman. I know that you're out trying to get a little R&R, and we're glad that you were still able to join us. And to my team, who continues to do a great job, thank you for everything. We will communicate with you in the next several days, and we'll see you on the next town hall. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.